risk management. There are many business risks that affect your finances. What are they? I've identified 4. First of all, interest rate risk. Most borrowing is linked to either the base rate or a LIBOR rate. As these rise over the next few years, interest payments on your borrowing is likely to increase. So you do need to consider your ability to pay over time when looking for new lending. Many of you will recognise that the current base rates today are at the lowest they have been for probably 100 years. So, shall I say, the only way is up. So it is important to build into your forecasts for years 2, 3, 4 and 5 that interest rates will probably increase. It is of course possible to mitigate against interest rate rises to some extent by taking fixed rate borrowing. This is something you would need to discuss with your own individual bank. Foreign exchange risk. Businesses who import or export are liable to be subject to a foreign exchange risk because the rate moves constantly. So if, for example, you agree to pay a supplier a set amount of foreign currency in 3 months' time, the sterling cost will be different on the payment dates. Once again, there are products that can help mitigate against foreign exchange risk, and it is something you can again discuss with your own individual bank. Another business risk is suppliers and debtors, and both may get themselves into financial difficulty. And let's think about our trade cycle and the impact of difficulties with a supplier. If you only have one supplier for all of your goods and services, this could be a very real risk. If we look at debtors, again, we often find that businesses are so keen to make sales that they sometimes forget that, of course, that old adage I mentioned earlier about cash being king. The debtor is only of use to you when the debtor repays the monies that they owe you. So it is important that you recognise there is a risk in providing credit as a business and only provide finance yourself to businesses you are confident will be able to repay the funds that are owing to you. And finally, on stock. Stock may become obsolete or out of date, or it might be damaged in a flood or stolen, so do take necessary steps to manage stock. The appeals process. Another of the Business Task Force initiatives that I mentioned at the beginning of this masterclass was the new right that businesses have to appeal if a lending application has been declined. If you are declined lending following a formal application for a business loan or overdraft, you have the right to appeal that decision. The task force banks have agreed a new set of principles setting out exactly what you should expect when appealing. These principles will be monitored and scrutinised by an independent and external term of reviewers, ensuring that those member banks have implemented a fair, prompt and transparent appeals process. So how does it work? Well, if you're declined lending, your bank will tell you and give you details of their appeals process. It will not launch automatically following a decision to decline your application, so it is up to you to generate an appeal if you feel you have been declined unfairly. An appeal can be made after any formal request for lending has been declined. This means any application that has gone through a credit assessment after the bank has received all the relevant information from you to make a decision. The important point to make here is about formal request. There will be instances, of course, where informal conversations take place. On the basis of an informal discussion, an appeal would not be able to be made. Where an appeal is raised, the decision will be reviewed by a second person from within the bank who was not involved in the original decision. The bank will consider all the information originally provided and ask for more where they think it is necessary. You recall from our earlier slides, there are instances when perhaps not all the information has been available from the outset. The result of an appeal will be communicated to you in writing within a maximum of 30 days. If lending is still declined after an appeal, the bank will provide information on alternative sources of finance that may be more appropriate, or provide support in another form, such as putting you in touch with a business mentor. An external independent reviewer, Professor Russell Griggs, has been appointed to monitor and scrutinise the appeals process. So for further information on the appeals process, visit the Better Business Finance website on www.betterbusinessfinance.co.uk and look for the appeals fact sheet. Well, that now wraps up our Mentor Finance class, and thank you for listening.